If you have ever spent way too much time baking and thought that you could be the next Julia Child, then you've undoubtedly wanted a KitchenAid stand mixer, which is unsurprising because those things are an engineering marvel. They look the same as they have since the 1950s. Vintage attachments still work on newer models, and they remain culturally relevant even though women's expectations in the domestic sphere has changed over the decades. Even though they are priced higher than other cooking mixers, they still have a dedicated fan following all over the internet. If you have ever wondered why a 100-year-old company still has a chokehold on cooking enthusiasts everywhere, then you're in the right place. This is engineering at its finest, and we're here to talk about how the KitchenAid stand mixer conquered the American kitchen.
You don't need to see their kitchen to know they have KitchenAid.
I got interested in the KitchenAid stand mixer not only because I hadn't attained other forms of adulthood such as a house or kids, but also because I wanted to buy things that stood the test of time. I decided to build a list of curated items of things that are built to last and make it available to everyone. This list would include where to buy those items, how to maintain those items, coupon codes, and links to communities surrounding those items. If you're interested, the link will be below to sign up. Without further ado, let's get back to the KitchenAid. The story goes that Herbert Johnson, an engineer working for the Herbert Corporation, conceptualized the stand mixer after watching a baker mix dough and thinking there had to be a better way. Soon, the Model H was launched for industrial work. Literally, the first stand mixers were sent somewhere that they were desperately needed: the US military. The US Navy were the first recipients of the stand mixer. In 1997, Herbert stand mixers became the standard equipment for all US Navy ships. A year later, Herbert started eyeing the retail market and stamped the KitchenAid name on its first product, the C10, a 10-quart stand mixer that was marketed for home use, small commercial kitchens, and soda fountains. Prototype models were given to the wives of executives in the factory, and the product was named when one stated, "I don't care what you call it, but I know it's the best KitchenAid I've ever had." When stores were reluctant to carry the KitchenAid, Herbert hired a largely female sales force to sell the C10 door to door. So just like they were Avon ladies and Tupperware ladies, they were also KitchenAid ladies. While the C10 was being introduced to domestic markets, a cultural revolution was also taking place.
In towns across England and the United States, a series of extraordinary innovations would alter the way people lived and worked for the next 150 years.
More middle-class American homes added electricity. Prior to this time, a sizable portion of employed women were maids. More than half of the employed women worked in the domestic service, according to the 1870 census, and that percentage continued to increase. The early 20th century saw a shift from live-in servants, meaning many women began to cook for their families for the first time. These were upper-class women. And this was not during the TV dinner era. In fact, it was kind of the opposite. Kim Voss, author of Reevaluating Women's Page Journalism in the post-World War II era, "It's difficult to look back at how cooking used to be compared to what we do now," says Voss. At this time, women were expected to have a several-course meal, always with a dessert. That was a lot of labor that went into cooking for a family. Preparing elaborate meals was also tied with status. How much you loved your family was dependent on how elaborate your meal was, Voss says. Having a standalone mixer was not just a convenience, but kind of a necessity when you imagine how much workload those women had to do. And the KitchenAid did not come cheap. The KitchenAid currently is still kind of expensive, with a newer model running around $400, but then it was very expensive. When the KitchenAid first hit the home market, they cost around $889, which adjusted for inflation will be around $2,000 today, which meant that only the richest families could afford to buy one, and this gave the KitchenAid its newfound status. This was part of its appeal, and it spread by word of mouth from one wealthy woman to another. Quickly, owning a KitchenAid became a status symbol. In the 1930s, KitchenAid brought in industrial designer Ignat Arends to shake up the stand mixer's look. That redesign set the stage for what the mixer would look like for decades. He created the streamlined K model, which has become the standard for the brand, and helped the KitchenAid eventually take the top spot in sales. In the 1950s, KitchenAid began to make its mixers available in multiple colors. The power of color gripped consumers then and has not let go. The ability to personalize and customize your own KitchenAid is part of its appeal. Between the plethora of colors and the different ways you could customize it individually, People struggle over which color of KitchenAid they want. I already know mine. Give me that Empire Red. With all this, how did the KitchenAid stand mixer conquer the American kitchen? I think it did so for a couple of different reasons. Firstly, it permeated the cultural zeitgeist. Secondly, it has a large community behind it. And thirdly, that thing is built to last. Let's go in deeper into each of those points. To state it simply, the KitchenAid is iconic. In 1997, the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art selected the KitchenAid stand mixer as an icon of American design. Whether it's Martha Stewart, Julia Child, Babish, The Great British Bake Off, the KitchenAid stand mixer has had numerous appearances in pop culture. It even makes appearances in House of Gucci and Master of None. Beyond its popular appeal, it's also become some kind of symbolism for adulthood. For example, KitchenAids have been traditionally given as wedding presents to set up a new couple in their independent home. Even though most couples today that are getting married already have their independent lives, the KitchenAid is still a very popular wedding gift. According to the Knot, the KitchenAid mixer is the most popular item in the wedding registry. And because design has changed so little over the years, you can spot a KitchenAid stand mixer anywhere. So its iconic design is probably one of the reasons why it's become a staple, irrespective of price, in the American kitchen. It also has an almost cult-like robust community on the internet. These enthusiasts are working, tinkering, obsessing, tattooing, and tweeting about their KitchenAid mixers. When you get a KitchenAid stand mixer, from what I understand, I don't know because I have yet to get one, it's like you joined this cult, but instead of wearing weird outfits and moving out to the middle of nowhere, you instead talk about making bread. Also, the reason why people love the KitchenAid so much is because of nostalgia. And the nostalgia is not just personal, it's also cultural. Because the KitchenAid stand mixer has not changed since the 1950s, it conjures up this illusion of a domestic doyenne relishing in her kitchen. This mixer symbolizes idyllic suburbia and suburban prosperity. And even though the 1950s housewife myth or ethos does not exist outside popular culture, popular brands around that era painted a picture of a rosy domesticity. Finally, since the KitchenAid is so durable, it actually can be passed down from one generation to another, making it a family heirloom. This then allows the KitchenAid to maintain its dominance in the American kitchen from one generation to another. Essentially, the KitchenAid is a combination of aesthetics, nostalgia, functionality, and durability. If you love your KitchenAid for its durability and want to live a more sustainable life, sign up for Built to Last List, a website that curates products that have been known to stand the test of time. Also, if you like this video, comment some other items which you think have such cultural dominance like the KitchenAid stand mixer. And if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe and I will see you all next time.